All right, good morning or afternoon or whenever you feel like watching this, I guess. You can watch it tonight so you're ready to start tomorrow. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to finish up sinusoid waves and cosine waves, and then what we're going to do is, and then you're going to work on the homework. That's all you're going to do today. So we'll finish up the sine, cosine waves, and then when we come back for the play, we will do the tangent wave and talking about the inverses, and then you should be hopefully ready for that test, okay? So here we go. So we'll talk about sine waves, cosine waves. We already talked about, in a sine wave, we talked about the amplitude, we talked about the period, so the amplitude, the period, and now we just need to talk about the phase shift. How can you translate that phase, okay? So when we're talking, if you guys remember, when you're doing a move, when it's inside the parentheses and something outside, you remember what this is. This one does what? It affects it which way? It affects the x-axis, right? The x, and this one affects the y, up and down. Okay, does everybody understand that? So if it's something outside of the parentheses, it affects it up and down, left and right. Okay? So now let's go ahead and look at like what they do, lift it differently. Okay? So here's the thing to think about. In a sine wave, so let's think about this in a sine wave. Sine wave starts here, right? So it's 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, right? So sine 0 here, right? This would be 1, down, 1, up, right? So here's our sine wave. Okay, now I can't draw. So there's our sine wave, right? So this would be y equals sine x, period. That's simple math, simple sine wave. Now, if that's a simple sine wave, how could I write this in terms of cosine? So think about this for a second. If I took this wave and I slid it from pi over 2 back here, and it started here and went down and down and up and down, right? So what would this wave be? That would be a cosine wave. So what had to change? I had to move it how much? Pi over 2, right? So sine is equal to cosine pi, or x, minus pi over 2. Okay, so I subtracted pi over 2, and in subtracting pi over 2, I made a sine wave into the cosine wave. So what would it be if cosine x? What would it be in terms of x? So if I have this and I have to move it here to get it to a sine wave, it would be x plus pi over 2. All right, so you got to be cautious there. When you see the sine wave, if you plus it, moving it in this direction, notice it's translating it, it's inside of the parentheses, and it's affecting that move, okay? All right, any questions on that? So Mike, I would write these two down just to have that as a kind of remember it so you can use it in the future. Now let's talk about an actual problem, okay? Now let's talk about an actual problem. So here we go. G of x equals sine x plus over 2 plus pi over 4. Okay? Plus 2. Now, so let's review. Number here, amplitude. Okay, good. Everybody remember that part. What's the number here is the what? Period. Good. What's the equation for period? 2 pi over b, right? Then, what does this do and what's this do? This goes up and down, and this goes left to right. And how do you know if it's left to right? Positive or negative, all right? Any questions, everybody so far? So this is amplitude, period, left to right, up and down, and basically what are those called? Those would call be the phase shift. The phase shift of that wave. So, help me out. What's our amplitude? Our amplitude is clearly 1, right? So, I'm going to do this. And in here it says it wants us to graph it from negative 2 pi, negative 3 halves pi, negative pi, negative pi over 2, 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 halves pi, 2 pi, and it wants us to graph from there to 4 pi. Does everybody see that? So you would keep going, 2 pi, 2 pi, or 3 pi, and pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. So the next one would be 2 over 2, so plus 1, so 3 pi over 2. No. So that's 4 over 2. 5 over 2, 6 over 2. And, put in here 7 pi over 2. 6 pi over 2 is 3 pi, by the way. And this is 4 pi. Okay? So I want you to graph this from here to there. And so you got to remember, take into account that period, okay? And so this is going to make a difference. Just watch carefully. So next. So what's our period? So what would this number be? Well, there's nothing there, or at least you don't think there is. What? Watch carefully. Can I do any division here? Yes, I can. 1/2. 1/2 x plus pi over 2. Right? So now do I have a period? Sure do. Here we go. So 2 pi over 1/2, which is 4 pi. So in other words, it's going to, the two peaks, okay? The two peaks are 4 pi apart. Okay? All right? Now, so we have our period, we have our amplitude. What's our phase shift? What's our phase shift? Our phase shift is plus 2, so it's going to do what? It's going to go up 2. So 1, 2, 3. Why? Because normally it's here, so we go up 2. Okay, it's going to start at 2, right? And it's going to go up to 3 and down. Why is it going to go up to 3? Because its amplitude is 1. So it's going to go up to 3. So from 2, it's going to go up to 3 and down to 1. That's going to be your wave height. And so the phase shift is up 2. And now, what's next? What's the next part of the phase shift? Right here inside our parentheses, right? How do I find what our phase shift is? And so here's how you find your phase shift. How do you know which way it's going to go? Phase shift H, this is your H value, this is your K value. K is up and down, H is left to right. How do you find H in your phase shift? H is C over B. Okay? C over B. Well, what's C? C is this value right here. C is this value right here. So pi over 4 over B. What's B? 1/2. Which is equal to, right? So it's a negative pi over 4. So pi over 2. So in other words, your phase shift, so you're not starting here. You're going to move it over what? How far? Right here. Okay? So it's going to go there. So it's going to start at pi over 2. That's going to be, is it going to be at 1 or at, what is this, a cosine wave or a sine wave? sine wave, right? So sine wave at sine 0, where is it? 1, right? So it's going to be here. So here's your thing. It's going to be, what's it going to look like? Further and wider, right? So when is it going to be 1? When will it be 1? Here, right? Okay. When will it be 1? Okay, there you go. When's it across the 2? Right here. Because that doesn't accept, because it's going to be, put 1 down here a little bit. It's going to look like this. Go here. 1. Back up. 5 pi over 2 is the next one. Okay? So that makes sense to everybody? Alright? Okay, so how does that happen? So your phase shift here. Now, by the way, you can use this as your phase shift if you want. If you actually take out your B, you can use that as your phase shift. Alright? Okay, so let's do another one. Let's do another one. So let's try another one. Remember what was frequency? We didn't have to use it for this one. It's going to be 1 over P, right? This is our period. P is equal to this. So you got to flip. So really your frequency is what? B over 2 pi, okay? So that comes in, will come in handy at some point when you do some problems, okay? So keep that in mind. Any questions on that so far? Let's do another one for practice. And then I'll leave you to work on some problems, okay? All right, here we go. So the problem is this. It says, write an equation of a sine function passing through point 3, 0 and has a period of 5. Okay? And an amplitude of 2. So, what I'm looking to draw, it's going through 0, -3, all right, 0, -3, and, okay, and then what? Period of 5, amplitude of 2. So, here we go. So, our generic equation is, we need an amplitude, sine, period, parentheses, x plus value plus a value. Right? Okay, so everybody follow that so far? I'm sorry, this should be minus. Okay, why is that minus? Because it's the opposite. Anything is in the parentheses is always opposite. So that's where I might have confused you. Hopefully I didn't confuse you. Now, so where's our amplitude? Amplitude's easy. Plug that in here. What's this? This is our period. So if the period is 5, do we just throw 5 in? No, because really what's your period? What's that period going to be? It's going to be what? 2 pi over 5. That is actually what you'll enter into our equation. So, right here, it's 2 pi over 5. What's this number? What's this number? -3. What's this number? 0. So, we are now ready to solve out our equation. Y equals 2 sine 2 pi over 5, parentheses, x plus 3. If I really want to go all the way out to unsimplify this as much as possible, here's what it would look like. Y equals 2 sine 2 pi x over 5 plus 6 pi over 5. I'm sorry. Nope, not 5. 2 times. So 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2. So 15 plus 2, 17 pi over. Okay? Alright, sorry, I was right first time. 6 pi over. Okay? So that's how you would do that problem. Okay, this is the most simplest form. So you just write out your equation. Okay, this is the y value, this is the x value, this is your period. This is the period. You have to solve it for our equation, 2 pi over b. Okay? Right? Because this is technically b. Technically. Okay? Alright? So that 5 is that number, and you plug it out. Okay? Any questions on how to solve that? So how would you graph it? Well, very simply, your amplitude, where you're starting from, okay? Moving it up, down, left, right, and then you just plug in and solve. Okay? Plug in and just weave your way through. It is not easy, but it is definitely something you can do, for sure. So let's try another problem from the book. So, let's look at another problem for you to kind of figure out, okay? So let's look at 22, okay? Look at number 22. We'll do number 22 together. Hopefully this is helpful. It's good for me to practice doing these problems, you know, so that I can keep up with my students here. G of x equals 2 cosine 5x minus 1. So what it's wanting is to state the amplitude, state the period, phase change, vertical shift, then describe the function's transformation from the parent one, from the normal cosine wave, and confirm your answer by the technology. Okay, so now you go to technology to figure out your answer. So here we go. So start off, amplitude. Amplitude. What's our amplitude? Here it is. Amplitude is what? 2. Good. All right, so we've got our amplitude. What is our period? Equation 2 pi over b. So 2 pi over 5, right? Agree? Everybody agree with that? Now, what is your, is there a shift, a phase shift? Is there a phase shift? Phase shift, in other words, h is 0. Notice the parentheses is this. That is not included. So what is the vertical shift? What is your k? Your vertical shift is down -1. So those are your answers, and that's how you would solve that from that information. All right, so that's how you do number 22. Any questions? Any? Good. So let's do number 25 or 26. Okay, so that's all you're looking for in that problem. Okay. Number 26. 26 says this: graph g of x equals 3 sine parentheses 2x plus pi over 2. So what do? First steps when you're graphing. First thing is you got to find your amplitude, you got to find your period, you got to find your translation, and then you can draw it. Okay, so here we go. First off, what's our amplitude? Amplitude is 3. Amp's 3. We got to rewrite this. 2. If I take 2 out, what am I left with here? Pi over 4. Good. So what's the 2? The 2 is our b, right? So what is the period for 26? What's the period? It's going to be what? 2 pi over 2, which is pi. So here's our period, right? And now what? What's the translation? The translation is what? H is equal to negative pi over 4. Negative pi over 4. Everybody good with that? Okay, so we're going to start, so when we start a little graph, it's going to come back to pi over 4. that's where it's going to start. And where does our sine wave, when it's going, where does it going to start from? Does it cross the axis, or is it at the highest point at that axis? Cross it, correct? So right here, so it's going to go, so it's going to be down, all right? So these are a little different, because this is going to be pi over 4, this is going to be pi over 2, and this is going to be 3 pi over 4, and pi. And this one's going to be pi over 4, and this one's going to be negative pi over 4, and this is going to be negative pi over 2, and then the next one's going to be negative 3 pi over 4, and the next one's going to be negative pi. Okay? So we're not going to go any further. We don't need to go further. So if it's going through here, then it's at this point, it's at 1. Okay? Our amplitude, what's our amplitude? I'm sorry. Amplitude's 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? So it's down here, and then it's going to be here, right? And then it's going to be here at 3, okay? And then this one's going to be, that's there, so that's going to be, make sure, it'll be here, boom, 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 okay? So what's this graph look like? Okay, so see how it's real tight and big. Big waves. Big W, big win, right? So that's how you're going to do it going forward, all right? So your homework is going to be do number 3 through 3 through 36. 3 through 30, just do 3 to 35. 3 to 35, okay? So 3 to 35. All right, odd, okay? 3 to 35, odd. So you watch the video, you can do it tonight, and start working on your homework. Page 203. 3 to 35, odd. Okay? All right, have a good time.